What's up, everybody? I am back, and I got new PROF today. Louisiana just came out on Friday. I wanted to listen to it, but I didn't because I wanted to do it here first. So this is my cold reaction. Hopefully it's good. We'll get into it in just a second. Before we do, 3 things. Like and subscribe, if you would. Helps me out. I'm not a professional. I am not a vocal coach or, touring artist or anything like that. I'm just a guy. I just like music. I know a little bit about it. I took piano. I took choir. So I know some things, but I'm not an expert. If you're looking for an expert review, go watch Fantano. And then part 3 is don't be a dick. You may not like the song. You may not like me. That's okay. I can live with that. But I try to be really respectful and thoughtful when I do these reviews, and I would just ask for a little bit of that in return. I got my coffee, and I'm ready to go. So this is Louisiana by PROF.
The moon is low and so am I. I'll give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. I heard a little snitch gon' testify. I'll give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. Never knew that it would be a suit, try to take my life. I'll give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. I let a fucking liar change my mind. Talk to Louisiana, Louisiana, one-way flight. We spent the summer in a fire. We had to flee our home at night. Rooms filling up with smoke. I think we about to lose our life. I just wanna do what's right. Help my brothers and my sisters in a fight. You'd have thought that it was 1965. Ain't no more time to be polite. I got my head on a swivel, but who expects snakes in the middle? Consider their family to clarify. To stab you in the back when they're terrified. 1 for the pigs that were raised that way. Take control back on top of getting paid. 2 from a family that came as slaves. Still haven't got justice, been forbade. 3 from a family that's hungry in the streets. Tents in the city, been growing every week. Every day is something new, I just can't believe. I got an anger in my heart, been burning in the heat. The moon is low and so am I. I'll give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. I heard a little snitch gon' testify. I'll give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. Never knew that it would be a suit, try to take my life. I'll give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. I let a fucking liar change my mind. I let one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana, one-way flight. Junkies fighting for their life. 100 needles in my alley every night. I see the news crews outside. The Boogaloo Boys out all night. Everyone gets strapped and hide. They in their trucks riding around at night. Come to the city looking for a fight. It's a full moon, y'all hold tight. Where might one go to find peace of mind? Where might one find one who treats you kind? Everybody think they got the angels on their side. Is it possible for us all to get radicalized? I don't know how I'm gonna make it through another one of these nights. You can tell I'm at the end of the rope just by the look of my eyes. We're all going hungry with isolation. To feel some fine confrontation. Is it possible to have faith and patience? You can't breathe when we're all contagious. I don't know how this all unfolds. Time's fast and I'm getting old. Growing deaf from the things I'm told. Don't know where my head's gonna go. The moon is low and so am I. I'm gonna give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. I heard a little snitch gon' testify. I'm gonna give it one more shot, then it's off to Louisiana, Louisiana. I never knew that it would be a suit try to take my life.
Well, that was not a... it's not a particularly uplifting song, right? But I will say a few things. Very few things made me happier than that police precinct going up in flames. At the time, now still, I think it's one of the best things protesters have accomplished in the last 20 or 30 years. I have very strong thoughts about the way police operate in our communities, in our cities, the amount of money they get, the way they're able to abuse people with no repercussions. A police officer shot and killed a friend of mine in his own home. And then they tried to smear his name after he was dead. I understand there are some people who have complaints about the way protests were done in 2020. And to those people, I say very gently, very thoughtfully, go fuck yourselves. Because look, you know what? There were businesses that got hit that shouldn't have been. Absolutely. There was collateral damage in those protests. That was people just expressing their rage. And fair enough, all right? Perhaps that could have been channeled in more productive directions. I'm fine with the destruction. I don't give a shit. Property damage is not violence. If people talk to you about how violent the protests were, you should go look at some of the studies about how violent those protests were, because the vast, vast, vast majority of those protests were nonviolent. And I do not consider breaking a window or burning down a building to be violence. Property damage, destruction, illegal, yes, those things are all fair. Fair enough, right? It is illegal to burn down a building. But it is not violence because you're not hurting anybody. And I don't care. Black people have been getting killed in our streets as long as they've been in America, frankly. But look at the people who were front and center during Ferguson. And look at how many of them are dead now. And just ask yourself, how strange how prominent faces in the black community of these protests in Ferguson from 2014, Michael Brown, prominent faces of the protests, people were getting interviewed, right? Leading protests. A bunch of them are now dead. And they did not just fall down the stairs. Okay? I have absolutely no sympathy. No sympathy for police. None. They have a job that is safer than most jobs. My uncle is a roofer, and he's more likely to die on the job than a cop is. They don't prevent crimes. They make absurd money. Defund the police, right? I have a shirt that says that. And I believe it. I believe it deeply in my soul. It's not just a slogan. It is a thing that needs to happen. If you don't understand how well-funded the police are, the three largest militaries in the world, okay, are the U.S. in terms of spending, right? U.S. by a significant margin. I think are $400 billion or $500 billion more than China's official military spend. China, and then the U.S. police, right? All of the police department funding in the U.S. makes up the third largest military budget in the world. The New York Police Department has a $6 billion budget. And civil asset forfeiture. So if they pull you over, they can take the cash you got on you, claim that cash was going to be used to commit a crime with, and then if you don't get yourself a lawyer to go defend your money to try to prove that the money is not actually being used for a crime, they get to keep 80% of it. 20% goes to the federal government, 80% stays in their pockets, and they buy a fucking slushing machine. It's It's absolutely unconscionable, the shit that they're able to get away with. In a lot of states, there's no such thing as content warning. Police can have sex with the people they've arrested, and it's not considered rape, even though it absolutely is. That's just allowed in a bunch of states. So I know this hasn't really been mostly about the song, but to be fair, the song was mostly about 2020. Reference the Boogaloo Boys. The Boogaloo Boys are a far-right fascist militia, sort of. I don't know that they're still doing much. They were showing up at protests wearing big Hawaiian shirts. And their whole thing was they were accelerationists. They didn't care whose side they were fighting on. They just wanted to take over. They would fight against the police, right? They would fight, or at least pretend to be on the side of the protesters, but not because they supported what the protesters were about, right? The enemy of your enemy is not always your friend. The enemy of your enemy might be a fucking fascist who wants to take charge and then they can squash you, right? The police weren't doing a good enough job of squashing the communists and the leftists that we hate, we being the Boogaloo Boys. So we need to depose them so that we can be in charge and we can really start to, get some street justice out there. I'm frankly, credit to Prof. I'm surprised that he threw the Boogaloo Boys in there. They were not one of the bigger, more well-known militia types in 2020. This song is very good. It's not like a banger, right? This is not a song that I'm gonna listen to get hyped up, because it's not. It's a tough song. The video is beautiful, because you see the destruction, right? You see the buildings burning. You see the pigs out in full force. But what you also see is you see people getting together to support each other, to support their community. One argument about why the protests are bullshit is because you saw mostly white people out there. Well, there's mostly white people in this country. Proportionally, black people are 13 to 15% of the population. So yeah, if you're going to have a big protest, you're going to see mostly white people because it's mostly who is in this country. And I think that's fantastic, because there's more of us. We need to be out there, right? We need to be out there because we're not going to be targeted the same way black people are. Straight up. I spent a little bit of the summer out in the streets myself. And I didn't do anything that's going to get me in any trouble, but I also support the people who did. I don't give a shit. Something has to change. Something has to change in this country. And so far it hasn't. What happened as a result of 2020? Police departments got more funding. Now, you can blame that on the protesters for not having good optics, but I don't think that's fair. I think that it's just a disregard. We live in an ever-increasing police state. When I was at protests, there were snipers on the roof from the National Guard and drones. I saw them. I saw the drones. And I know somebody who was very worried about her boyfriend being sent to monitor these protests. They were not there to protect the protesters. When we were there, we got tear gassed and shot at with rubber bullets, right? Some people threw some water bottles at cops. Dangerous. Dangerous. You could get water on your uniform if you got hit with a plastic water bottle. And they responded by unloading with tear gas and live, not live ammo, but rubber bullets, right? Pepper balls. So it's got to happen again. right? We need another summer like that. If anything's going to change, that because you just got to push. You got to push until it is unsustainable for them to not give in. Anyway, I know I didn't really talk much about the song. It's a good song. I like PROF. But I wanted to talk more about the protests because I feel like I know how they were reported on. Do you know how much of Portland was like the center of the protests? Because people talk about how they burned down these cities. Do you know how much of Portland was part of the protests? It was like 6 blocks. Portland is not that small. 6 blocks. All right. So a very small portion of Portland was where the police headquarters was where all the drama was night after night, where people were. Not the rest of the city. The rest of Portland was fine. It didn't burn down anything in the rest of the city, except for like maybe arsonists who just would have done that anyway. The reporting on the protests was tragic, frankly. Anyway, all power to the people and fuck the cops, man. That is what I have to say. I say it at the end of a bunch of my videos, not all of them, but I'll say it at the end of this one. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. ACAB. Drink lots of water. Stay safe out in the streets. If you're at a protest, if you're out there, whether you're in Iran, whether you're in Burma, whether you're here, right? If you're out in the streets, be careful. Stay masked up. Protect your identity. Leave your phone at home. Don't get caught. Do what you got to do, but don't get caught. And whatever you do, do not talk to police.